All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, this video is called, Do You Need It for Your Next Run? This is a story from my time as a paramedic. So I was working for a private transport service. This is after I had done a couple of years in 911. And for a variety of reasons, I ended up at a private transport service. And the run that we got was an ALS hospital-to-hospital transfer. Not unusual by any stretch of the imagination. And it was ALS for cardiac monitor and possible medication history. Tell you about the patient. This was an elderly gentleman, had a pretty significant pulmonary history. He was on 3 liters nasal cannula at baseline, and he was sat in around 92% when we got there. So we get to the transferring hospital. And he is actually receiving a treatment from the staff. And I get all the information I just relayed to you guys. And he's going from one unit to another. They didn't really have like pulmonary specific ICU at this hospital, so he was getting transferred to a different hospital so he could receive those services. Well, so we get him loaded up. Get him, he's on the oxygen, on the monitor, everything's fine. We start transporting. His O2 starts dropping. Remember, he's on 3 liters cannula, and he's sat at about 92%. So, think if my memory serves, it's been quite a few years since this run happened. He starts dropping down, he starts like touching 90, kind of skips off it, would come back up. You know how patients do. They kind of like to do this. They keep bouncing off a certain point, and then their body catches them back up. Well, then all of a sudden he hits 89, 88, and he starts staying there. So I listened to him again. Well, guess what? His lungs sound like shit again. Like they're starting to get worse from before when we started transporting. So it's like, ah, crap. Now, for the protocols that I am operating under at this time, I am allowed to give someone 3 duodenum treatments before I have to call medical control for another one. And remember, this guy had just gotten one before this. He's also on regular doses of steroids. So while I do have steroids on board, I don't want to double him up on those. So I give him a treatment. He starts getting a little bit better. And then after about a couple minutes or so, he starts diving back down again. It was about a 30-minute transport from one hospital to the other, and I ended up giving him all 3 treatments because he just started sounding like crap. His oxygen would drop. Even if I increased the oxygen, it wasn't doing, like, to the point that honestly this guy really should have been on high flow with continuous albuterol is really what this dude should have been on. And I mean, I don't know what else, but honestly, he needed to be on several different meds at the same time because, I mean, he was just not compensating and staying up. So we get to the hospital, drop him off. He did fine, even with all the treatments that I gave him, and we get ready to mark back in service. Now, here's the thing. I am working for a very small company at this time, so I don't have a whole lot of supplies on my truck. In fact, I used up the last of the albuterol that I had on my truck for my duonebs. Whatever. It's happened before. I had days when I worked for 911, and anybody who's done EMS will know this, you will literally run your truck out of some meds. I remember I've had to mark out of service when I worked 911. I've had to mark out of service 2 times. One was for albuterol, and one of them was for Narcan. That was a fun day. Yeah, literally ran the truck out of Narcan. That was fun. So anyway, so I call my dispatch and say, it's like, hey, we're in service from the run, but as of right now, we are in service BLS only because I don't have any albuterol. Like, I'm completely out. That's when I hear this. Well, I have another ALS transfer for you. Like, okay, that's fine. If we're going to do that, though, I need to come back to station to get it first. But it's at a hospital up near you. It's like, okay, again, I understand that, but I got to have the meds that I I need my meds. And right now I'm out of one. And then this dispatcher said this. Well, do you need it for your next run? Well, that's kind of an odd thing to ask because I didn't know I was going to need all of my albuterol for this last run. And yet, I still needed it. You know, it's like, okay, I didn't know I was going to need it for this run. I have no idea if I'm going to need it for my next one. Yeah, it might be an ALS cardiac transfer, but if that patient's also got a pulm history, or, you know, if they happen to have pneumonia or something else right now, I'm going to need my albuterol. So at this point, my dispatcher and I, we kind of keep going back and forth about this a little bit, and I'm not going to lie, at this point, and my partner, if you ever ask her, if someone ever asked her about this, she can tell, like, she can see how angry I'm starting to get talking to my dispatcher, because it's like, because to me, from my perspective, it's like, you're not listening. Like, you're asking me to do something that is not okay. Like, you're asking me to take a patient without all of the meds that I'm supposed to have on my truck. So, and the point that I kept trying to make to my dispatcher, it's like, listen, I don't have any meds. I cannot operate to the full extent of my protocols right now, which I have never been in a position of, and I'm not going to be in that position. Because if I would have taken that run, and if something had happened, and that patient needed albuterol and I didn't give it to them, that's on me. That's negligence. That is a whole bunch of things that, those are things that get you fired. It's things that make if your medical director hears about it, that you get your cert pulled. And guess what? You out of a job because you can't work without your cert. And your medical director says, no, you're not practicing because of what you did. That is the position that I could have potentially put myself in. So eventually, we keep going back and forth, and we get to the point to where I finally tell her, it's like, listen, unless you let me come back to station and get more albuterol, I am not taking this run. And it was at that point that the dispatcher decided to drop it. And I'm not real sure what ended up happening. I think she might have called the hospital back and told them, it's like, look, I'm sorry, but we can't do that. Needless to say, I had a very quite angry conversation with my boss the next morning when he came in, who coincidentally happened to be the owner of the company that I was working for. I also didn't ever see that dispatcher again, which was good because, yeah, I don't think we could have worked together after that. Here's the lesson from this story. Me taking a run without all of the stuff that I am supposed to have by my protocols would have been a profoundly stupid way to either lose my job, lose my cert, or both. And to any and all providers who may see this, the other lesson is this. Do not ever put yourself in a position or let yourself be bullied into doing something that's going to put you in a bad spot. Don't let it happen, because at the end of the day, it's going to be on you. And if you run into a problem with this, tell your medical director. Like, no problem at all. You should have absolutely no hesitation about talking to them, especially if you are getting bullied by someone inside your organization. You may try as much as you can to use the chain of command within your organization first, but if that fails, go to your medical director. Reason being, that medical director, their medical license is on the line. If something happens with a provider that they have signed off on. That's their license on the line. So believe me, they have a very vested interest. If there is some unsafe practices going on, they have a very, very vested interest in taking care of that. So yeah, just a little story for you. I hope you take a good lesson from it. Don't let yourself be put in a bad situation. Don't get bullied into doing something that you know is not right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.